Moving on to our next speaker, we have Mr. Vikas Anand, Sales, Head of Growth and Partnerships with BotMinds. He has 25 plus years of industry experience across sales, marketing, pre-sales, consulting, and new business development. He has deep understanding of RPA and IPA market environments. Please put your hands together for Mr. Vikas Anand.
Thank you. Presenting BotMinds here. A couple of things that Gokul spoke about. I want to go ahead and touch upon that. A couple of things that Vish spoke about in a minute. I think the points on the intelligent automation and the AI being the starting point of that, 2.5 to going ahead on a high level 5 scale, I think that's a very interesting point that I was not aware of, but good to know today. So I want to cover in the next 10-15 minutes here a couple of things, very simple 4 points here. Number one, who we are as a company, BotMinds. Second is, what is it that we do and why should it matter to you, which is, how we do it. And at the end of it, what is it for you? What is the benefit that you get and why should we be interested in what we are doing specifically? All right, so we are a document AI platform, world's first integrated platform. And what we are trying to do here is we are trying to reimagine the IDP, we reimagine the document AI space, intelligent automation space by inventing and going ahead and pushing the IDP boundary to IDP 2.0. Couple of things. We are founded in 2006, 2016, couple of years back, 6 years ago. But the key point of our work really started 2-3 years back when we, put up our platform together, brought it into the market, and that's where a lot of integration, acceptance, conversation really started happening. Couple of clients that you see on the side there, we thankfully have a couple of more now. Good conversation last 2.5 years to be able to bring into the platform and the overall integration there. And some of the testimonials, reviews, and these are all the people that essentially have already looked at RPA, already looked at automation, have done certain work in RPA, have intelligent COEs essentially in place, and now they're looking at BotMinds to see what else can be done specifically there. All right. So what is it that we do? So essentially, who we are on the single part again, integrated platform does a couple of things here. First, read and understand documents. Everything that we do is to do with documents. So we read and understand the documents. You have the ability to query a document, and it doesn't really matter whether you have a native PDF file, native document, or a scanned image, or a scanned document that is coming your way. And so far, I think the extraction piece has been designated specifically to the OCR, certain areas to say, okay, we got the OCR, let's go ahead and extract that part. But IDP is not just about extraction. That is simple, rule-based engines could essentially do that. The key part is to be able to navigate through the variety of different formats, templates, types of documents that come through, being able to extract and then do something with it, right, to be able to enrich the information there. And at the end, to be able to provide you a single platform where you can go ahead and get everything delivered. And by a single platform, I essentially mean AI first, no code, vertically integrated, and end-to-end. And I want to clarify a bit there. When I say end-to-end, we are essentially talking about the fact that if you've got an RPA that you're currently running, you have an RPA, then you've got a document, which is not really a document, it's a scanned document. You've got an OCR to take care of that. And then you've got a couple of other engines to look at. If there's a web, then you have got a web scraping tool that does some certain piece. The idea here is that you shouldn't have to go ahead and invest in all these multiple pieces. It's like building a car from different parts. But now we're talking about an integrated model where one person, one company develops all these models, all these parts, and integrates together. Works fairly seamlessly. So what we do is we do 4 pieces, key 4 pillars here. Number one, we do data extraction. So any kind of data, any kind of document, we have the ability to extract. And I'll talk about the key differences there in a minute. Document discovery. You upload a document and instantly it goes ahead and becomes searchable. You can discover insights from the document immediately. Third piece is document analytics. And again, it's not just going ahead and extracting the pieces. The output that we have extracted, now you can make sense out of that. You can run some analysis intelligence out of that. And number 4, which is automation. So it's not just give us the document and pick up the information from here. The idea is that we can pick up the document from anywhere. We can go ahead and look at a web page. We can go ahead and talk to the underlying RPA if you have that investment. But if you do not have the RPA investment, we can go ahead and put it into your CRM, your systems, your emails, etc. So that's the end-to-end piece that we essentially run. So very first piece, document data extraction. As you would see, 4 things. Number 1, document understanding. Any kind of document, what you see here is a demo of our platform. On the left side of the platform is the source document, and the right side is what we have extracted. And this is near real-time extraction. So we already have certain fundamental models which are ready in the platform. So a model like Table AI, Form AI, Document AI, Semantic Understanding, all of that is built in. Which means you don't have to start training or teaching that this is what my table looks like, this is what my document looks like. All of that is given. You upload a document, we understand where is the heading, where is the table. If there are balance sheet, the financial statement, we can differentiate between a balance sheet versus an income statement versus an P&L. We can differentiate that. All of that is basically done. And the very first challenge really is the classification. What is this document? And that's typically from the BPO side. You would remember an L0 problem. A call comes in, a desk picks it up and says, okay, who do you want to talk to? And then you redirect. Same thing with the email part here. So that's a document classification that we do. You upload a document, our platform has the capability to understand once it has been trained, and it then goes ahead and pushes what extraction needs to be done there. So that's part number 1, document data extraction. Number 2 is discovery, which is what our platform gives you, advanced search capabilities. So essentially, you have the ability to go ahead and search. What you see on the left-hand side, and the first time I opened the document, right now, we are looking at personalized views, which means even without opening the document, you have the data that's available to you right on the screen. You can go ahead and extract that. And you can start writing custom queries. What you see on the left-hand side is the query option which is available. So I'm going to go ahead and search for something right there, and it shows you a document where the information is. And then comes deep linking. It's not just even shows you, you can click on it and it'll take you to exactly where the document carries that particular information. And mind it, this could be a 10-page document, or it could be a 500-page document, or it could be a document set like tenders and RFPs, which have 25 documents together. They're all bundled into a folder. We have the ability to identify, recognize, extract, and take you to the exact same place. As far as I know, this is an absolutely golden weapon when it comes down to reviews, legal contract reviews, evaluation, risk analysis, etc. Because typically an SME would go ahead, extract it, you go ahead and send it to your peers and your reporting managers to say, this is what I found. And the manager would say, okay, that's great, but can you tell me what's above and below and what's the information there? And the whole loop repeats again. So it goes to the SME, he or she needs to figure out where exactly what's this, unless of course the things have been noted properly. But in here, you just have a deep link that's available, not even in our platform. If you extract the information from our platform to a PDF and Excel, send it to 7 people and they forward it to 7 other people, the last person can click and get to this point and say, okay, I find the information, I know where it is. So the context is always maintained, never lost with BotMinds. Third part is on the document analytics. So this is where we upload the documents, we have got the information, we've extracted the details, but what can we do with that? We have added real-time reports, real-time dashboards. I'll show you 2 examples here of the different dashboards. And this is where, depending upon what your role really is, if you're just monitoring and you're looking at, what are the kind of contracts coming through, what are the kind of tenders which are coming through, what's the value, you can do that. You can do that part. You want to look at the accuracy of a particular, model and say, I want to see how many of them went straight through, how many of them required certain changes. You have that report that you can generate. So it's completely flexible to anything that you specifically want. You can create your own custom queries, multiple dashboards, etc. And last part there really is the end-to-end automation. Anywhere you have the data, we have certain scenarios, and I'll show you one example of a case study that I have with me, where we are going to the web and we are doing an open search and we are finding the information and then we are bringing the information out from there. But that's, I'll reserve that to the piece there. The key part here, no matter what platform technology you have from an AI perspective, you always want to have some bit of control before the decision making is actually done or before the changes are committed. And that's where the human in the loop comes into play. So we offer that part as well, where you have the ability, the SMEs have the ability to review the information that the AI has brought out, extracted. You can review, you can correct. And it's a self-learning model. You can go ahead and create new models and say, and I give this example, very often, BotMinds would be like hiring a new employee in your organization who is already trained in your domain, trained in the area, like legal, like contracts. All that you need to specify is, hey, this person is the guy who you get the contracts from. That's the information that you need to provide. We need it by this time. And that's all that you train. and then it goes from that point onwards, customized to your specific requirements. We have workflows and alerts, so you want to be alerted into certain cases, typical RPA example, typical automation requirements, so we check all the boxes, essentially there. Important point I want to mention here is that think of BotMinds or a platform like this is not as a replacement to your existing automation investments. It's something that a typical RPA automation cannot do at the moment, because the starting point really is very structured information. You start from a structured, you get that information in Excel, you input into an RPA, and then it goes forward. But the moment you have the pieces at the beginning, which is, I've got this varied document, let's write another code to be able to, let's train our OCR to be able to extract this information. The moment that template, that format changes, you start the journey all over again. That's the piece where we come in. That's the piece where we can help. We can take you all the way, or we can go till the point you already have the rest of the things sorted out and we plug in at the very beginning. So that's the 4 points here. All right, so how do we do it? I've covered some bits of this, starting from left to right. We understand all types of documents. So whether it's a native PDF file, like I mentioned, whether it's a scanned image, we do a lot of work on KYC. In KYC, typically the information is, you're on the field, you've taken the Aadhaar card photocopy, you send it via WhatsApp, it goes somewhere else, and then it ranges from a 300 DPI, it ends up with a 90 DPI at best. Slightly twisted, slightly tilted kind of a scenario. We handle all of that as well. So OCR is kind of built in. And not just OCR, we look at web pages as well. So web pages could be your dynamic web pages, could be static web pages. A lot of work and research is done from company profiles. But if you're looking at dynamic web pages like a marketplace, we can go ahead and look at that. Now the challenge with dynamic web pages, it changes. You cannot go ahead and train or design something that sticks to that web page. It completely changes. So you don't have to design every single time or change. We manage that with our platform. So that's the first part. Second is training is absolutely simple, which essentially is you only do point and click, so it's a no-code platform. There's literally no place to write a code. I am ex-RPA, was working with the, let me not put a name here. So ex-RPA, so I understand the low-code, no-code abuse that term has taken to a large extent. Before you buy it, it's absolutely no code, and by the time you're buying, it's low code, and then you realize a lot of work needs to be done. So there's no place here to write a code. Everything is point and click that you need to essentially do. And the third piece, AI typically needs tons of information, as much data as you can provide. Like I mentioned, we've done all that hard work. We've done that millions of data points training in the last, half a decade that we had, with our platform. What needs to be done is onboarding a new employee, onboard BotMinds. What is it that is specific for you? Give us just 100 examples. Take that first 1 week of training, train a new employee, train this platform. That's all that is required. We have delivered, and let me not just say we, because it's a no-code platform. Anybody can go ahead and do that once the training is done. The first version model essentially is ready between 2 weeks' time, and that literally is something that you can start working with. Production models are ready within 4 to 6 weeks' time. And I keep on saying models here. I don't expect anyone to be having Python knowledge, data scientist requirement, none of that. Anybody in this room here can go ahead and start doing what we're doing at the moment. It's that simple. All right. So is it ready for enterprise? Yes. We offer everything. It's a cloud-based, so it's a SaaS-based platform, runs on private cloud. You have end-to-end encryption that's available to you. All the other checkboxes that you would want to see in an enterprise platform, that's available. There is no on-prem model, so you run off the browser, you just open Chrome, and in Chrome you go ahead and put BotMinds, and that works. You don't need to do anything else. You do not need anything else beyond that. So from an investment, startup, training point of view, it's absolutely zero barriers there to that. A couple of things that we have essentially done, contract discovery automation. This is one of our marquee clients. We just finished a webinar 2 weeks ago where legal counsel gave a demo of our platform to see how he's basically using that. He has no techie, no RPA, no background, nothing, but he's like, this is how I'm using it, right? So we have 30,000 various contracts from, I think, a couple of dozen companies that have been acquired, put together into this pot, and that becomes, dashboards and queries and everything else. One of the dashboards that I showed you earlier belong to this idea here. Second is a tender risk analysis we've done, being able to identify risks in a particular tender or an RFP that has come through. That's a very subjective part. You would need a human touch point there to say, that's risky, but that's acceptable risk that I'm going to take. This part is risky, this is borderline, or this is absolutely not acceptable. So these two pieces we can absolutely predict and recommend there. We are also working with end-to-end pharmacovigilance, automation. This is essentially the part where you're looking at the fact that there's information that is available on the web. You're finding adverse events, and you're trying to figure out, literally open web, to find out exactly, did somebody report adverse event to this drug? We are doing that discovery there. Spreading automation on finance, and last but not the least, invoice automation. This is one of the last things that we started, and so on the lighter side, because invoice really is not that big a challenge. It's fairly structured, fairly decent, but it is a challenge nonetheless because it changes the formats. And this is one of the first challenges that RPA platforms usually take up, because it's unstructured, but it's near the boundary of rules and everything else that you could define. We took it towards the end because we were dealing with 500, 700, 800 page contracts to figure out how do we sort that out rather than 200, 300. But we've kind of discovered invoices come in 300 pages also. They come in nested formats and nested tables as well. And basically our platform addresses that piece too. So what do you get? What is the benefit? So I've kind of put 2-3 slides here, quickly run through them. Some of the things that we have done with our platform, whether you are running a legal operation or running open research or financial services or financial operation, even healthcare, we've done some bit of work in some of the areas. And to explain that a bit further, I've kind of broken this down into these 3 pillars like that. The things that you see in blue, I hope that's kind of visible to all of you sitting at the back as well. This is what we currently have some kind of demonstration, some kind of work, some kind of client that we have done this work for. The other pieces we are currently working on. So majority of the areas within vertical parts of the industries, banking, financial services, looking at healthcare, insurance, legal, open research, we've done some kind of work, and Botmind's platform, you would find some kind of relevance over there. All right. So this is the point that I want to show you a quick case study and an example here. So the requirement here is to be able to monitor the open web for quotes. And typically you would understand this is the research kind of work. This is the human kind of work. So you want people to go ahead and start querying a particular search engine to be able to find thousands and thousands of web pages and find out what are the press releases, and from the press releases find out, are there any executives mentioned there, what's that executive, and what is it that they said. And then you want to go ahead and pick that information out and then do rest of the work with that. So again, this is a leading research technology firm, which essentially specializes in transformation services. And they do a lot of work, they do a lot of work specifically on the research side. Now again, like I mentioned, the challenges are, we're looking at thousands and thousands of newsletters and web pages with the information. And as you can imagine, web is free. You can do whatever you want. You can write in whichever way you want. You can go to one news website versus the other. Nobody has to follow one particular protocol or format. You want to be able to classify whether it's relevant or it's not relevant. If there's a personal part, then you want to say not relevant, or a certain specific area, you want to say relevance there. And also, there's a lot of, from an SME point of view, you will have an SME, then you'll have a QA team, then you'll have a, other team to go ahead and verify, and you do a dipstick analysis to see everything is kind of picked up. All those challenges were there absolutely here. So what we delivered for them, and this essentially was done roughly within about 4 weeks time, we kind of finished the entire delivery and delivered to the client here. One part, one solution, auto ingestion of thousands of listings of URL. There's a demo immediately after this, 1.5 minutes, not very long. But just to give you a perspective, our platform would go ahead and run a search query with an open search text in the choice of your search engine, let's say Google. It picks up the top 10 searches that show up because that's the most relevant, that's the most fresh searches which are there, goes to those search results and then finds out, is that the real web page for the press release, or I have to go somewhere else. It goes ahead, identifies that, finds out if this is relevant or not, finds out the name of the person, finds out the code that they have mentioned, and all this activity is done. And then this is packaged and brought together. You can consume it through your dashboards, Outlook, your Excel files, PDF files, directly embedding into your CRM or your research applications at the back. And so classification, relevant extraction, SME validation, and output to downstream system are 4 key pieces that we did with essentially this entire piece here. We were able to improve the turnaround time by 4x because they were really doing it very manually. And you can imagine how manually it would happen. Search, Control F, find the person, didn't find, go somewhere else. After lunch, the productivity kind of dips down because it's natural part there. But again, the ability to be able to kind of churn this piece out, report after report was kind of very important for the client and for us as well. So here is that in action. You see our platform here, the reports that you saw towards the end. We have brought in the information which is there on the press release into our platform. You see the relevant, non-relevant part on the right-hand side. You see a quote, you see a name, designation, the company, and this is all written in an open way, in a conversational way, somewhere in this entire report. It could come in once, twice, thrice, doesn't really matter. All of that kind of needs to be done. Another example. So we got this, at the very beginning, you've got the quote that has come from a particular person. What is the name? What is the designation? What is the quote? Now, I did yellowfin there. I want to show that there is, of course, views that are available. So I created a view to show you the designations, right? And then because we were searching for yellowfin, I'll just go ahead and search for that and show you what kind of output that shows up. And all the results would show up over here. And if you were to go ahead and click onto it, it goes ahead and takes you exactly where you were in that document. And all of this essentially is happening in near real time. So the moment a press release is released, you're basically going ahead and querying the search engine based on your requirements. You want to do it once a day, perfectly fine. 3 times an hour, that's also perfectly fine. All of that pieces essentially continues to run. So that's all that I had covered here. Pretty happy to take any questions that you may have. We have trials available that we can set it up for you. So please go ahead and see me or anybody from my team at the booth. Thank you. Any questions? I didn't get any bells, so it looks like I have 7-8 minutes with me. Yes. Yeah. Not similar, but I'll give you the answer to the accuracy percentage. So we call it as a recall, and I'm not just putting in another name over top of the other. The 2 things that you want to make sure that happen. Number 1, if I go back to my example here, it has to go to the right place. It has to go and pick up the right name. It has to go ahead and pick up the right information. Then it has to read the name correctly. So these 2 things essentially have to happen together. So if I've got the name correct, but instead of Greg, I'm read something, Craig, C has become G, that's not accurate. So we call it as a recall value. And on the basis of training, we have experienced roughly at about 75 to 80% in our first pass, which is at about 2 weeks' time. So that means any document that you upload the very first time will be 75% accurate. The output will come through. We don't say that is production ready. The production ready takes about another 2 to 3 weeks, and we've seen 90 to 95%. Mind you, the COFAX part is really 15 years ago, really was the OCR piece, right? So it's an OCR, it is what it is. It depends upon the technology.
I will put my questions
here. Yeah.
Here it's very easy, you are talking about press releases, they will come in digital form.
Sure.
Let's talk about invoice processing.
Sure.
I will have manual invoices, I will have scanned invoices. People will write P.O, people will write purchase order, people will write P.O.O.
Yeah.
All these things will come in that way.
Yeah.
Now, when I say accuracy means that if there are 15 fields in my invoice, customer inventory invoice, my team member.
If it is green, which is typically after we have done the training and corrected that, if it is green, you do not need to validate that.
That's one of the questions.
It is not required. But as a best practice, you would always do a dipstick analysis and check that everything is good. Yeah, sure. I'm happy to.
It's about the handwritten checks, right? Today, we don't, even the OCR, whatever best it tries, it's not able to extract some of those information. And keeping that in mind, you think, is it a investment worthy of doing that, or it's a, I mean, a lot of times we have seen that it's a fruitless, it doesn't yield any result, handwritten checks and all, and that's the biggest problem in the industry. Or is it getting phased out because of some of the digitization?
Yes, so handwritten is still a little bit of challenge, no matter what anybody says at the moment. It's still a little bit of challenge. And then you've got people who are possibly not writing exactly at the place that it needs to be written, right? So we handle handwritten. We have done, a great example, we have done handwritten medical reports. That is much more dangerous than the checks, right? So we've done certain part of that, but I wouldn't suggest or claim that it is 100% there. It can basically do a lot of work, which essentially is augmenting the SME to say, I don't have to pick up A to B, I just have to look at B and say correct or not correct, right? So handwritten is at that stage at the moment, wherever you go ahead, and same with us as well. Yeah. Question?
But I just wanted to check in the last case study, something that you shared. Did you also mention of going to open internet and checking out for the document, searching out for the content and extracting it? So that comes somewhere under the paradigm of web crawling, web scraping, so to say.
Correct.
So in your experience, have you come up with any kind of situations where you have had some legal issues with these kind of things? And how do you really deal with? Because a lot of people have got solutions, but it stops when the legal issues kick in.
Very good point. Thanks for the question. So yes, we do. We only look at publicly available information. We do not go behind a paywall, right? Because behind a paywall is essentially, they don't want, like LinkedIn, for example, does not want you to automate. They absolutely discourage that. And then they would have stuff like CAPTCHA and this and that, and that's like a chicken and mouse, game or a catch-22. They want to make sure automation doesn't work. We want to make sure we read CAPTCHA, so that doesn't work. So we have the ability to read and extract. We are not a web scraper, because web scraper is nothing more but an OCR for the web page, which means I look at dimensions and I pick up. The moment something changes, it breaks, and you have to do it all over again. So we crawl the web on the basis of a human intelligence, and the signature that we leave behind is also like a human has come and visited. So we're not also doing a multiple attacks over there to find out, we ping multiple times. Signature is always that. We extract the information, we pick up the information that is available publicly. If certain of our clients for which we have done, whereas there's a login information available, doesn't have the CAPTCHA, and the best practice there is any technology, any platform that you're using, you basically want to tell them that we are using automation to go ahead and extract the information from you. That's the best way of that. That whether it's RPA or OCR or crawling or anything else, that's the best bet there, right?
You get like a lot of instructions which are in different formats,
Yes.
right? So for each format, how many samples do we need for to train it on the bots anywhere?
Thanks for the great question. So it is not mentioned this time. The 100 is a line drawn in sand. So depending upon what your variation is, I'll give an example. Let's say finite, you have got 10 different variations. 10 is a very small number. But you have 150 fields that need to be extracted. That will have a different kind of requirement. Versus a 25 variation and 2,000 fields, we want to make sure that every field roughly gets 100 or so examples. That's all that we want, right? So from that perspective, again, it's not 1,000 and 1,000. We have seen 100. It has gone up to 250 to 300 to 400 as well in the variation. The moment you come into the invoice and the templates, the importance and the variation may go ahead. But we have a lot of base models which already understand a lot of pieces in terms of how something needs to be extracted. You're just showing, here is my variation. Here is how stuff looks like when I am handling it. And we pick up those variations there. Yeah?
Hey, Vikas. Okay, do your model give a confidence score? And if it is, then ideally, what is your straight-through processing currently? And how effective is it in terms of probably on a unstructured document?
Okay. And that's literally the term that we use. We have the ability to show you a confidence score, not only just by an overall model. You can look at a confidence score at a field by field level as well, at an attribute level, right? So this is how the whole step goes. We go ahead and train the first pass and say, here is the information. Then we take it to the SME, because we're not the SMEs. The SMEs need to look at, say, yes, correct, no, not correct. And all of that can be done in the platform. So if you see here, wherever it stops, on the other side, there are certain buttons on this side that you would see, which essentially gives you a tick mark, check marks. So you have the ability to make the correction right there and then itself. The moment the correction is done, it goes back as a learning to the model. So next time the prediction comes in, it already understands that part. So the confidence score is available on the platform, and you have the ability to look at it. To a straight-through processing, that's the definition that you want. You are certain fields that you would want to say, you know what, invoice number cannot be wrong. It has to be 100%. But for others, address, I'm okay, 70, 80%. So you define that straight-through processing. Then we specify what kind of training is required to deliver that straight-through processing. So all of that is going to be working hand-to-hand. For the unstructured document, thank you. We only specifically deal with unstructured document. What you see here is completely unstructured, right? And again, if the definition is, unstructured, I thought you had a follow-up.
No, I did not. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so the unstructured really is, you're looking at, tender documents, you're looking at invoices, could be structured, you're looking at contractual documents. We have done extraction from financial documents, which you could say has some structure. Call transcripts, which is literally a transcript of this audio that we are recording here today. We can extract information from there as well. So it's as structured as it gets to be able to extract the information, right? And you also have that human in the loop that you can define and say, the moment you find this information and you're not confident enough, which is the model, you have to bring it to a human for the validation. And why this would be typically not confident enough is the previous example that it did not get enough examples for it to train and confidently deliver that value. So all that checks and balances are in place there.
STPs we observed in unstructured document
context. You can have a lot of context in the passages, content. So you can achieve good STPs.
No, I think that's right, because see, the productivity, you can gain productivity when you're ideally having straight the higher number of human in loop. So the point is about to get the STP accuracy, or rather STP right.
Correct. And that's what object to the training being delivered properly to the platform.
Hey,
Yes.
Vikas, Manoj.
Yeah, Manoj.
Very quick question on the commercial clients, right?
Sure.
Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
please?
Typically in the market, you would have a platform cost and then you have a processing cost on a per page basis. We've kind of fused these two models. We have 3 different tiers which are available at an entry level that you pick up. With that subscription, you get certain number of users, 20, 30, 100, as many as you want. With that, you get certain number of page processing capacity per month, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 pages, whichever way you want. And we give it on the basis of what kind of functionality you want. So if you, for example, have only documents, you don't need OCR, you don't need web page, you don't need APIs, you've got a tier that you can pick up as a very entry point. But if you want all the bells and whistles, you can come all the way on the right hand side, and you've got a subscription model there as well. Right, so the commercial model is subscription, gives you platform, gives you number of page capacity, and you can always pick up additional on top of that.
Yeah, everything
Have an
included.
output-based
Everything included,
model?
one license cost per month.
Single one. So there is, yes, thanks. So from the RPA perspective, it is typically the bot license, then you have orchestrator, and then you have multiple other things. It's a single license for the enterprise, and you get a number of users that you want to pick up on top of that for all the things.
Is model that you have?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment. But we're pretty happy to work with it, because that's where the STP comes into play, where we say, okay, we will train it sufficiently to get that point, and that's where we go ahead and put our points there.
Yeah, because I think that's really the skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because
yeah.
Ashish here. Accelerators for, let's say, invoices or financial documents,
We do.
insurance.
So we have some pieces which are kind of readily available. Curve is there, so we've worked on invoices, so there's a starting point that you get. There's tenders that we've done, spreading work we've done in terms of financial documents, so that's the starting point that you
How
have.
about KYC?
KYC, yes, we have. Yeah. But the key point again, even if whether we have it, it definitely gives you an acceleration there. But the other part, starting point, is that we already understand the document, where you don't have to train on tables, you don't have to train, this is what my document, this is where my next paragraph is, this is bold, this is small, this is the image. All of that are basically there. You just need to building blocks to say that's the relevant part. And for some of the scenarios, we already have an accelerated model which is ready, which could be a starting point there, Ashish.
And since you mentioned tables, how about nested tables?
Not a problem.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yes.
It is chart, it can work on a chart transcript also.
Chat transcript, yes.
Right. Can it also identify intent? Can it help to identify the intents?
Intent, yes. So that's semantic, yes. Yeah.
It can be trained to.
Yeah, probably up.
So let's say you are uploading hundreds of transcripts and you want to train the intent. Let's say intent is also you can define in our platform.
Okay.
You can define 10, 20 intents, and then using the 100 transcripts and you can train with the performance.
Yes.
Is it language agnostic?
At the moment, English.
Only English?
Only English. But we have, all the pieces of double byte characters there. We're looking at 6 to 8 weeks to add a new language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if my client doesn't want to share the data with you, then I understand that we can use the API and then we can book on this.
Absolutely. But the training has to happen within the platform. So that's where we do a private cloud deployment within the client. So there's certain training that needs to be done. The best way that we have found there is that we train you. You can go ahead and use the documents from the client in their environment and train the platform. Nothing has to come to us. And when we deploy everything in private cloud, there is no BotMinds AI mothership where it has to go and get some intelligence. Everything is self-contained within the private cloud.
Do we have a sandbox environment that we can
Yes, we do.
play around?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So is it we go to the site and we can register and we can get the access to
I'll
it?
see you outside the booth and I'll set it up. for you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
We have, given our capacity and size, we have kind of played with some of it, but the moment a requirement comes through and says, I want this delivered, we have done that and we are roughly about 6 weeks. We are currently working on Spanish and Chinese at the moment. We see a lot of work coming for French as well. But the moment money is put on the table and say, we want it, we'll put our effort there, and 6 weeks is roughly we're looking at. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Anand. Requesting Mr. Ajay Bakshi to present the memento to Mr. Anand.